Hi, and welcome to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. And today's Tuesday, February the 11th, 2025. And we're glad that you've joined us. We're getting better at doing the switches and what we need to do, and hopefully the volume is better. I know that yesterday Michael's show even was at a very low volume, and during the processing, I was able to, thanks to Dr. Tim, telling me how to do it, I was able to increase the audio so that it was better heard before we put it up on Podetize. And the shows are also going up on YouTube. And so on the website, where it used to say either listen or download, which those are now dead links since Blog Talk's gone, we have been changing and adding in both the link to the Podetize player and also to the YouTube, so you can pick them up there. So hopefully everybody's finding their way around. And once again, I'll say, a lot of people said, well, I was listening to the show, but I couldn't call or I couldn't comment. If you just click on the link that is sent to you, you're actually listening on the Needle website. You have to open your Needle app, and from there you can listen to the show. And if you've clicked that you're following us or that we're a favorite, then it'll pop up that we're live. And then you click on it and you can listen, you can comment, and you can call in and different things from there. We'd love to hear from you. And so I am going to turn this over to Michael, and I'll give you a quick update. Ryan has actually had to call Vanderbilt again because his head's swelling at the original tumor site where they removed the tumor. And so they've put him back on steroids again, and they said they want to see pictures of it Friday, and they'll decide then whether he needs to come back to Vanderbilt or whether he can have something done here with his primary care, like maybe put a needle in it and drain it or something like that. Hopefully his shunt is working. They may have to increase the amount that it drains. So it's a work in progress, but he's back to physical therapy and doing well as far as his balance. His face has come back, his smile, he can wink, things like that. So that is definitely improving. He still gets a little bit dizzy if he, closes his eyes or turns his head too quick. So he's still not able to drive. And so we're still going over to their house, alternating with Gabby's parents whenever they're off work, and um, staying over there and taking care of both Ryan and Lincoln. So as we move through these challenges, we are still blessed and we're thankful. And thank you for keeping us in your thoughts and your prayers. And I'm going to turn it over to Michael now.
Awesome, and welcome everybody. Delighted that you're here. Delighted that we get to move this conversation forward to the next level. So welcome. And I think Jeanie's given you all the news on what's happening with Ryan. So I see there are a couple of folks in the queue who have had some questions. So rather than starting off with a presentation, I'm going to open the gate and just say, if you have a thought or a question for us, let's start there. Push the call button in your Needle app. If you're listening to Needle from a link that was sent to your text and it went to a web page, unfortunately from there you can only listen. You can't speak to us. But if you look up toward the top of the page, if you're on a web page from a link, there's a button there where you can click for the Android or for the iPhone and download the app, and then open the app and find Mindshifters Radio, select it as a favorite, and then open it, and you can interact fully. You can make comments in the comment section. You can push the call button, and we can have a conversation. So if you're out there in listener land, as I say, I see a couple of people who've expressed some questions, so I would love to get to those questions before we do anything else. So if you're out there, push one. Or push one. No, that's the old brain cells from Blog Talk Radio. Push the call button. Then fill in there are a couple little boxes there you need to click, and then push call again, and we can have a conversation. Come on, don't be stubborn. Push that button. Okay, you're not going to push the button. Well, in that case, then I'm going to share a piece of work that is very powerful. At least I found it to be powerful. And it ties into some work that Jeanie and I did several years ago with a man who had a teaching center, or an ashram, I guess, out in California. And let's see, it actually might have been in Washington, it was in Washington State. And this man was considered in the Buddhist tradition to be oh, a caller hit the button, so caught me before I got started. Camille, welcome, young lady.
Hi, love.
Hey, how can we support you? You and maybe push the. Oh, there you are. I got you.
I think my phone just, I don't know what it does. But anyway,
Okay, we've got you though.
yeah, I can hear you too, loud and clear today. Couldn't hear you at all yesterday. Anyway, I want to talk to you about a physical response I'm having that I don't know how to heal or to, well, eliminate would be my preference.
Okay,
Um,
how can we support you? What's happening?
Well, my mother used to call it a cringe. Whenever I see anybody in a cast or even hear an advertisement on TV about pricking your finger for diabetes, or even when Jeanie was telling me about Ryan's, thank God for Ryan's progress, um,
Yes.
anything about physical, I guess,
Pain?
well, it isn't like pain, but my nerves just like they grab. If I'm
Yes.
standing, I almost have to sit down. I mean,
Hmm.
this nervous reaction goes through my body that I have to just stop and catch my breath with.
Right. I hear you.
And it's just strangely uncomfortable.
Got it. So here would be my offering. And we'll kind of lay a foundation, start from a beginning point. If we go to the opening words in the book of John, it doesn't say, as the Greeks tell us, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh. What it
Right.
says in Aramaic is, in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about, Bruce Lipton's work, Cell Biologist. He's showing that when you think a thought, the thought becomes a molecule. The molecule lands on a cell, integrates
Mm-hmm.
itself into the cell. And so this molecule is actually just a piece of mind energy, just a thought. And when it lands on a cell, my offering would be that the when it hits the receptor site, the cell sends up a warning signal, and that's what I hear you talking about with this cringe. When you hear anything to do with pain, assault, hurt, the prick of the finger,
Mm-hmm.
what have you, that there's a resident energy in your cellular structure that my offering would be needs to be forgiven, to start to
Right.
to do worksheets. And I don't know if you've done any in that arena around that, until and make sure that you're breathing as you do it, until you're able to access that response in your cell. That sounds like, if your mother did your mother have that, what she called a cringe, or did she just observe it in you?
Oh no, she often said I didn't experience it until I'd say the last couple of years. She said often, "Oh, stop talking! It makes me cringe."
Right,
And
right.
so I did hear that from her a lot. But
So my offering would be that, a thought is moving in a cell. I mean, let's imagine that I'm sitting quietly. Let's do a brief meditation. I'm sitting quietly, I'm breathing, there's this beautiful music going on. I'm out in the cabin in the woods on my own, just in the middle of nowhere, and it's absolutely beautiful. And I'm breathing and it's quiet and the sweetest space. And all of a sudden, I hear a noise that means there's an intruder. I'm in the middle of nowhere by myself. What happens in my physiology when I hear that noise? What happens in your physiology if you do that meditation, just imagining it? Are you there? Have I lost you, Camille? I can see that you're still connected, but I'm not hearing you, Camille. Well, in any event, I'm going to assume that you can hear me. I hope you can. Maybe put a note in if you can. Maybe there's something
Yes,
funky
I
going
can
on.
hear you.
Oh, okay,
It,
there you go. I lost you
I don't
for
know
that
why.
interim period.
Yeah, yeah, I know. My phone goes
Strange.
back to, yeah, I know. Technology.
Okay,
Yes, yes. So
technology.
I
So
was
what
saying,
happens in
yeah,
your
that,
physiology?
okay. Uh, I feel this like it's like a contraction. It's like the nerves uh all over my body just contract, mostly in my legs.
Yeah, your body goes nuts, and in your legs because you're getting ready to run. It's a fear response
Uh-huh.
in the cell.
That makes sense. Yes.
So it's the mind energy of fear triggered by all of these circumstances. I'm in the middle of nowhere, there is no help, and there's an intruder. And that
Mm-hmm.
physiological response I would offer is just a more severe and more universal example of what you're talking about is that cringe, which sounds like it was an inherited energy. And maybe there's some event or something age related relating to mom that
Mm-hmm.
brought this into the forefront into your life in the last few years. And so doing some still point breathing, getting into a quiet space, along with doing the forgiveness work, you know, whatever, if the conversation with somebody pricking their finger to do a blood test or doing a blood draw. So I
Mm-hmm.
might use that as the object of attention. I was talking to Bill the other day and he was talking about how he went to the blah, blah, blah. And what's my goal? What's the goal you would hold for Bill if he's sitting there and he just repeatedly talks about this, experience of the needle going in his arm and a blood draw? What
Mm-hmm.
do you want from him?
Uh, just a peaceful response and understanding that no harm is being done.
Okay. So that would be the goal that I put in number 3 on that worksheet. And then I cancel that goal, and especially so there, the fact that, if you remember, we've talked before about the idea of my words fly up, my thoughts remain below.
Mm-hmm.
So what your words just told you is that this cringe response has got to do with harm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would do that worksheet and then go to the next level of a worksheet. And the worksheet could be just around harm or people being hurt
Mm-hmm.
and looking at, what might the goal be? Well, I remember when I was 5 and my friend skinned her knee and I looked and I cried and she was crying and, whatever, what did I want for her? Oh, I wanted her to be safe and, physically okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, you may, with a response that goes back at least to the last generation that you know of, this may be in order to rid yourself physiologically of that, fear-based response or that concern about harm response might be your 77 times 70 worksheet issue would be my offering.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I've been a little uncertain as to what the trigger was. I didn't feel like it was fear, but I I I think I've done worksheets on that, but not
Right.
specifically about this cringe response.
Yeah. It sounds like concern about harm or concern about
Yeah,
people being hurt, people being
yeah,
damaged. And so
yeah.
it sounds like that would be the arena to do your work in. And again, to really knowing that this is a cellular response, to
Mm-hmm.
really make sure that you're paying attention to your breath and breathing. Is there anybody there that has been through the work that can take you through some still point breathing?
No,
No.
not in this
Oh,
vicinity. No,
nobody close by.
I still work with Nancy and Tracy on forgiveness worksheets as well, on usually on Monday nights. We miss a few, but I think we've been doing this for 10 years now.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it's an incredible tool. I'm so grateful to you for creating it and updating it and everything. Yeah,
Well,
so
and
go ahead.
the corollary to that, if you go back to the ancient scriptures where they understood these principles on a whole other level than what today's scriptures bring forward, we hear the statement made via Greek misinterpretation, and we've been brainwashed with it. A lot of people have. In fact,
Incoming call.
I've okay. Can we just let that go?
Yes, I did.
Okay, okay. So when when the Greeks misinterpreted it, it's become a real terror idea in people's minds.
Mm,
And there's a statement in the scriptures. If you go to the Aramaic language, it says in a long form of the statement, and then I'll give you the Greek misinterpretation that people are terrorized over. But the long form of the statement in the Aramaic would be, there is a power in you that we might call a super processor, that when you give it access to any trauma you hold, will forgive or remove that trauma. Trauma being an energy that's off the mark, which in Aramaic is described by the word sin, the archery term that if you fire at the bullseye and miss the bullseye, the scorekeeper yells sin. So that would be the
mhm,
long form of it. There's a power in you.
mhm,
And that power literally is the breath. It's been called the Holy Spirit. It's got nothing to do with some kind of disembodied spirit being. It is literally the breath. The breath is the only thing that can scoop into your cell. And the breath being that which the Creator sent out at the creation. It doesn't say God sent out His Spirit, it says the Creator sent out its breath. And it's the only thing that can scoop into the cell and move the energy that doesn't belong in the cell out of it. If
mhm.
I deny that cell access by my breath, if I won't allow my breath to go that deeply in, then that energy, quote unquote, sin remains there. Now, the Greeks misinterpreted and said the unforgivable sin is the denial of the Holy Spirit. I've worked with people over the years who literally, I think of one man in particular, he was probably in his early 60s, and it was just a fact he had lived with for decades, that he knew that when he died, he was going to go to hell, a literal burning hell, because as a young man, he had done what he considered to be the denial of the Holy Spirit. And he knew that sin was unforgivable. He literally lived under this belief that at the end of his life, he was going to go to hell.
Wow.
And I've seen that impact. So many people impacted by that total fraud, that total
Mhm,
insanity that the Greeks put into it. What
mhm.
Yeshua is saying is, if you've locked an energy down in your cellular structure, i.e., a cringe, and you deny access to that energy by your own breath, then that energy, that sin, is not going to be removed. It's not going to be forgiven. Remembering that forgiveness is removal.
Mhm.
And I'm emphasizing that because this is such a direct cellular experience. Is you want to make sure that you are really attuned to your breath. And if you're doing a worksheet and you notice there's a place in it, you touch into step 4, and I'm willing to go through that, and you notice your breath is slowing down or altering its pattern or restricting,
Mhm.
be really
Mhm.
conscious of that. Bring the full breath in, and you want to be fully connected with your breath. And when you do, that's the aspect of the creator that can scoop out of every cell in your structure, every gene in your genome, those energetic patterns that never belong there. Deny
Mm-hmm.
it, don't allow it to go there, and that energy's stuck. So I'd say that'll be a really important aspect of this particular issue that you recognize is so deeply embedded in your cells, and sounds like you probably inherited rather honestly from mom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My empathy with and for her, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you probably literally genetically it came to you at conception, and then observing her would environmentally tend to reinforce. If I watch and mom's holding her breath and I'm holding my breath, then that energy, locks in on me on a whole other level as well. That's how those
Yes.
generational patterns work. And then our generational patterns tend to turn into power person dynamics. And that power person dynamic, when we're under stress and we're not willing to breathe and we're not willing to remove the cause of our stress, then the power person dynamic active in me means that I'm going to do to whoever the object of my attention is, if it's someone else or myself, exactly what my power person did to me that I hated the most.
Mm-hmm.
And so that becomes another point where, with those inherited and the environmentally reinforced issues, we really need to be able to pay attention to
Feel,
the breath,
yeah.
to soften your physiology fully and completely, wherever a muscle is holding, wherever there's a lockdown of that energy, to soften into it and allow that energy to be scooped out by the breath and removed. That would be the action of Ruka Dakucha in Aramaic.
Indeed. Indeed. Very clear. I love you for your clarity.
Well, we hold the space for you, and wish you were close enough we could get hands on and do some energy field work on you as you breathe and help you to move
Yes.
that.
Well,
But
I'll,
we're
I'll,
in
uh,
the wrong part of the country right now.
oh, I can't believe that. You're right where you belong. Um, and doing wonderful work. I'd like to relate something else that's troubling me, which I think may be related to this cellular response, and that is
Right?
um, I do not sleep well. I um, I go to bed pretty well, fairly tired. As often as I can, practice some qigong to calm myself down before I go to bed because I'm doing far more work than I've ever done on the computer, and I'm sitting too much. Uh, Even though I remind myself to get up and move around and walk and do some exercise, but when I go to bed, I will fall asleep, and
Right?
then at some point in the night, my legs begin from the soles of my feet up past my knees, just having various well, what they call restless leg syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's the
and
same
I'll
thing we're talking about with this cringe.
okay.
I'd offer they're probably um, energetic patterns are on the same spectrum and tied into the same issues.
Okay. Okay. So I can I think I can remember enough of what you've said, and I can certainly listen to the recording again and do my worksheets and my
Yes.
breathing.
And the breathing. Yes, definitely.
Yes, yes.
Definitely.
Very well. Well, I thank you so much. I'm so happy for this opportunity to reach you.
Well, we're here every day, planning to be here for the rest of eternity, 5 days a week. Dr. Jim for the first hour, and we're here for the second one. And so we're always here for that, and 100% available
Wonderful.
for support.
You just reminded me yesterday I called my bank to speak to a customer representative, and her name was Eternity.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
I
That
loved
was a
it.
sweet name. Yes, yes.
Indeed, I told her next to infinity, eternity was my favorite word.
There you go. That's pretty cool.
I
Nice.
know it. It was just great. So thanks again. Love to you and Jeanie and your families. And I will try as often as I can to tune in. Well, I do
All
tune
right.
in, but I can't always call in.
Right, right. Well, you've got, now that we've got the Needle app, you get a notification every day when the show
I
starts.
get
And
it.
for anybody that's listening, pardon us if when we've been going through some challenges, if we've had to restart the app each time we have to restart the app, which there have been some problems, that means you get another text. But hopefully, we're going to work through all these little glitches, and this app is just rocking. I mean, it's really uh, wonderful that
Yeah,
we have access to it. So.
yeah, it sure is. And I love getting the texts and the reminders. So thanks so much.
All right, dear heart, you have a blessed one. Cherish you.
Blessings to you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So I still see another name or two that had a question or two for us. So if you're out there in listener land, push that button. Call. Otherwise, I'm going to go back to the topic I was planning for today. I started to share that back, I'm not even sure how long ago this is, 15 or more years ago, Jeanie and I were driving up the California highway, heading to Washington State, to Seattle, actually, to speak there. And usually when we traveled like that, we would be, we'd do a 6 series of events with workshops. We'd start on a Sunday, then go through the following Saturday, then we'd be on the road, and we the next week or the next day we'd be in another city and another city, and that was kind of our routine. And this particular time, we were driving up the California Coast Highway, having a very relaxing time because we had, I forget now, 4 or 5 days to ourselves. We were off, so we were just kind of lazing it up the highway. And I got an email from a woman who said, my teacher, who was a Buddhist master, the man who in the Buddhist tradition is considered to be the verified Buddha of wisdom. I mean, literally, he's in the lineage, and they've gone through all the tests that they do to verify this is in fact who this man is. And we got an email from one of his students saying, gee, my teacher has been ill and he was at a healing center and they had your videos and he ended up staying there extra time to watch the rest of your videos because he wanted to learn what you were teaching. So we happened to be, when we got that email, about, if I remember correctly, it was about 3 hours from his center with a few days on our hands, which is like, synchronicity. So he said, okay, we'll be there in just a few hours, which we did. And we met with this man, and he was most interested in having a deeper understanding of forgiveness. And so we taught him, Jeanie and I taught him the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop, personally, just one-on-one with this man. So it was pretty sweet. I mean, just this guy was he was probably about 5'2", little round guy, just the sweetest, most compassionate, just amazing person. And when we got through the why workshop, he said, I am from Tibet, and until the atrocities that have been happening in Tibet with China, coming in and all that had happened and having to leave, we, of course, have this tradition of compassion, but we've never needed or never had forgiveness and did not have this understanding. And of course, we had taught him the whole idea about perception created from carbon-based memory, driven by goals, and that the canceling of a goal collapsed perception, which is what gave access to the unconscious and the ability to clean out the unconscious dynamics. And he was just thrilled. So we completed teaching that, and he had, I don't even remember how many students, but quite a few people from all over the world. And he asked if we would teach that workshop to his students, to which we said, of course, that's our reason for being, reason d'etre. So we taught the workshop once again at his center. And he had a center in Seattle and a center in one of the cities between where his residential center was. He had an in-city center. I don't remember what city he was in. Anyway, he said, we were heading back up to speak in Seattle, and he asked if we would mind doing a session in each of these centers, and he accompanied us. So we went to the first center, and most of his audience there was English, and we taught the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop live to his audience, and then went to the center. If I remember correctly, it was Seattle, was his larger center, and it was a large Tibetan population, so most of the people did not speak English. And I regret to this day that we didn't video that workshop, because I taught the workshop in English and he taught the workshop in Tibetan. We would just, tag team with presenting the ideas. It was really pretty sweet. I wish we had a video of that. In any event, we don't. And we hear from him every once in a while. He's now somewhere in, I don't remember last time, I think he was in Taiwan. Anyway, he's been moving around the globe. But I came across what I'd like to share today. And, oh, Portland, that's it. It was Portland. Thank you, sweetie. And I came across this poem by someone called The Anarchist Buddha, A Modern Path of Love. And it's just so beautiful and so powerful, even though it does not include the forgiveness piece. I've thought about writing another stanza to the poem and sending it back to them to add in the forgiveness piece. But it just integrates so much of the work into this beautifully written, simple poem. And I thought I'd share it and just comment on in the context of the work. I think it will be impactful for everyone. He sits beneath no single tree now. You remember the story of the Buddha, was he sitting under the Bodhi tree, and that's where he has his enlightenment. So the modern Buddha, the modern path, he sits beneath no single tree, but wherever silence dares to bloom. And if you know anything about the Buddhist path, a great deal of the core of the work is silencing the mind. And you'll remember how many times we've put out the thought that in order to heal, you've got to be out of your mind. So here's this, and I love the way this poet says this. He sits wherever silence dares to bloom. And remember that. Notice, if you haven't noticed it, when you do the forgiveness process, when you really engage in the forgiveness dynamic from the first century Aramaic Yeshua, when you cancel that goal, for a moment at least, your mind goes silent. And the more I practice, the more I realize that the longer periods I can stay in silence, the more time I'm spending in the mind of Christ in me. And that's the ultimate objective of this work, to support each person, leaving carbon-based memory behind, treating it as a database that has information when you need it, but not living out of it, not being guided by it, not having the generated realities called perception run our lives, but rather silencing that thing so that we have direct contact with the actuality of the moment. So again, he sits beneath no single tree now, But wherever silence dares to bloom, in the hum of restless cities, he calls for stillness, for presence. Forgiveness stops the mind's operation for at least a moment, and it opens a space. Remember the definition from, or the way that forgiveness is described in the Course in Miracles. I mean, literally, here's how forgiveness is done. Let go all the things you think you want. What are the things you want? Your goals. And the Course calls your goals your trifling treasures put away. In other words, your goal canceled. Get rid of that for the moment. Now, that doesn't mean don't ever have goals. Goals are wonderful. Just don't overload your mind with them, or your mind will never shut up. And if it never shuts up, you'll never have the space to enter into the actuality. And so that passage from the Course, let go all the things you think you want, your trifling treasure put away, and leave a clean and open space within your mind for Christ to come, for the active mind of love in you to come to the forefront. So in this single paragraph, they're describing precisely, and yet they don't have the tool of canceling the goal, at least according to this Buddhist master that we worked with out in California. It's not reflected here as a tool, as a method for achieving it. So add to your meditation. If you're spending time in meditation, if you're not, start spending some time there, where you still the mind. And now there's a clean and open space for presence, for the active presence of love. This Buddha says, blessed are the mindful, for they will see the world as it is. Now you remember how often we've described the difference between reality and actuality. So reality is nothing but a construct of the mind from the past, formulated into a picture, literally converted data, information, mind energy converted into a picture that's painted on the inside of your eyeballs, and you think you're looking out there into the world. And if you live in that, you have never seen the world. You have never experienced the world, the actuality as it is. So those who are stuck in reality all the time and never give themselves an intermission from it are locked into perception, a totally false world where everything is a lie. So a clean and open space. So he says, the Buddha says, blessed are the mindful, for they will see the world as it is. You'll have contact with the actuality. Blessed are the compassionate, for they will mend the wounds of division. And of course, what we're looking to do is to hand people the tools with which to heal the wounds of division within themselves, the wounds from which their power person dynamics flow. You remember how often we've offered to you, if you watch somebody that's in an ultra stress space and you ask them what their power person dynamic is, if you ask them, how did it feel when your power person did that to you? Let's imagine somebody in a particular conversation laughs in your face, and it's just totally, completely appropriate. The question to ask that person is, how did it feel when your power person laughed in your face? And that will open the space for the wounds of division in that individual to heal. And of course, each of us can only heal our own wounds. We can hold the space for another to heal their wounds and come forward with truth. But strictly speaking, everyone is going to have to do that piece of work for themselves. So again, blessed are the mindful, for they will see the world as it is. Blessed are the compassionate, for they will mend the wounds of division. Each one who becomes a space of active love in the space of division opens the energy window. You can't force anybody else to go through, but opens the energy window for each person who's ready to do the work, also to be free of that. And Jeanie made a comment, if you're not looking in the comments, she says, Ari told me in a game, others laughed with them, not at them. And she knew the difference. Yeah, she's just so amazing. So in this poem, once again, the Buddha walks unarmed into chaos. Remember that line in the scriptures that says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. This is it right here. One who can live free of perception, mindless, walks unarmed into chaos with no weapon but his steady breath. Whew. Now, I wouldn't agree with the word weapon except the reference to walking into the chaos, walking into the battlefield. This one teaching, hatred is never ended by hatred. Only love can end this fight. He stands at borders, not to defend lines, but to erase them, saying, we are one. No walls can divide the shared soul. Whew. So powerful. He sees the screens that blind us. What is a screen that blinds people? Their eyes. The pictures painted on the inside of their eyeballs, that they become so enamored with those pictures, so enamored with the unresolved power person dynamics of the past, that the pictures formed. And, if I have a goal for you and you violate that goal, the data that's resonated in me by your behavior violating my goal, that data in me, that information is going to be converted into a picture driven by my goal. And if I have an issue, a problem, my mind is going to literally show me that that is your problem. I will literally be blinded by a picture painted on the inside of my eyeballs. That's going to blind me to the truth that what I'm dealing with is something inside of me. So here the Buddha says the one who is free of this dynamic is in a state of compassion, mindless, sees the screens that blind us, the endless scrolls that steal our peace. What is the scroll? Lay out the power person dynamic. That's the scroll that blinds everybody, anyone who's in any form of hostility or fear. If you feel a need to cut off a conversation with someone because, boy, this is bringing up too much for me, that's the scroll that internally is stealing their peace. And to this, the Buddha says, awaken. Your freedom lies not in what you consume, but in what you let go. He meditates where the forests burn, where rivers are poisoned. This is so appropriate for what's been going on in America recently, where species vanish. The earth is not yours to conquer, he whispers. It is yours to cherish, to protect. And of course, the mind reared in hostility or fear cares nothing for the burning forests, the poisoned rivers, the species that are being destroyed. There's this whole belief of We're here to conquer nature. And the only one who could conceive of the need to conquer nature is the one who does not have a human life, the one who has lost contact with the fact that they are a part of that thing called nature. And to recognize that that is ours to cherish and protect. He walks with the marginalized, the ones ignored by progress, and gently reminds, a single act of kindness can shift the tide. Once again, right back there in line with Yeshua, where, as a physicist, Yeshua says, a little leavening leavens the whole loaf. That literally, each person who shifts the violence in themselves, the hostility in themselves, into an act of kindness. And of course, the offended one will give lip service to that, but actually doing it, good luck. In this poem, he goes on and says, the Buddha does not demand followers. He invites seekers. His revolution is quiet, a rebellion of the heart, an uprising of wisdom. So there's no violence in this work of healing. It is literally opening our own hearts, our own unconscious, freeing ourselves. My take once again, if you listen to the average psychologist today, they'll tell us that 80, 90, 95, as much as 98% of our so-called thinking, that is a cycling of information in us, is unconscious. And my offering is that the unconscious is a totally artificial creation that comes from the activity of denial. And this rebellion of the heart that he's talking about is exactly that, is the opening of that, the freeing of ourselves from the dynamics of our own unconscious, from anything based in hostility or fear. And from that, once that's out of the way, then the creation itself enters directly. It does not enter manipulated by unconscious dynamics, but it enters us directly and offers us on the silver platter of breath wisdom. Remembering Ruka Dekuchi in Aramaic, the words that have been translated as the Holy Spirit speak of a literal elemental force in us that, when truly invited into activity, by definition, one, undoes the effects of our errors, literally scoops out of the cell whatever energetic patterns do not belong there. And two, teaches us the truth, gives us the direct information, the uprising of wisdom. This one bows not to kings, but to the dignity and truth in each being. His path is neither power nor domination. It is liberation for all. And literally, for decades, our vision has been to make this work available to literally every mind, heart, and being on the planet. Because as long as one of us is bound, all of us are bound. As long as one of us is locked into any form of hostility or fear, then every one of us is locked into that same energy. And you say, Michael, why is it that person that's bound, well, they're on the other side of the planet. What's that got to do with me? Let's bring in the wisdom of Albert Einstein, where he says, if you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. If one is bound, we all are. If I do my work individually, if we do our work collectively, then we open an energy window that creates possibility for the the person who the world or perhaps themselves consider to be most damned can be liberated by that one little piece of work that sets a chain reaction in motion of healing. The anarchist Buddha rises again, not in temples of gold, but in the mindful acts of everyday people. He's talking about the awakening of the human soul to its true nature. So again, the anarchist Buddha rises again, not in temples of gold, but in the mindful acts of everyday people, carving a new way forward, one breath at a time. Right back to the breath. And I thought that was such a powerful piece of writing that everyone would enjoy hearing it and benefit from it. And what I'm going to do is just read it through in one fell swoop so you get the context of the whole piece of work that's being presented in this poem entitled, and Jeannie's got a copy of it, so it will be in the notes if you want to get a copy of it. The Anarchist Buddha, A Modern Path of Love. He sits beneath no single tree now, but wherever silence dares to bloom. In the hum of restless cities, he calls for stillness, for presence. He says, blessed are the mindful, for they will see the world as it is. Blessed are the compassionate, for they will mend the wounds of division. The Buddha walks unarmed into chaos with no weapon but his steady breath, teaching hatred is never ended by hatred. Only love can end this fight. He stands at borders, not to defend lines, but to erase them, saying we are one. No walls can divide the shared soul. He sees the screens that bind us, the endless scrolls that steal our peace. Awaken, he says. Your freedom is not in what you consume, but in what you let go. He meditates where the forests burn, where rivers are poisoned, where species vanish. The earth is not yours to conquer, he whispers. It is yours to cherish, to protect. He walks with the marginalized. You know, just the thought comes as I read this single line, not just with the marginalized. He walks with the bully. He walks with the offender. He walks with the hated and the haters, the ones ignored by progress, and gently reminds a single act of kindness can shift the tide. The Buddha does not demand followers. He invites seekers. His revolution is quiet, a rebellion of the heart, an uprising of wisdom. He bows not to kings, but to the dignity within each being. His path is neither power nor domination. It is liberation. All of humanity. The anarchist Buddha rises again, not in temples of gold, but in the mindful acts of everyday people, carving a new way forward, one breath at a time. So breathing with you, and we've got about 5 minutes for someone's thoughts. So if you have a thought for us, a question, push the call button in the app and say hello. And if we have no additional thoughts, then I'm going to just share a couple of ideas. We are moving forward. It's not fully solidified yet on doing a 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again intensive here just outside of Bristol, Virginia, a little town. There's a really beautiful retreat center just 15 or 20 minutes from our house here that we've used before. So it looks like that will start on May the 2nd. There'll be a 9-day why. And this is conditional right now on how much interest we have, how many people are going to jump in and register, if we've got enough to actually fulfill the facility's minimum needs in order to move forward. And then we're going to do, or at least the plan is to add to that, a 3-day training on using the personal or interpreting, understanding the personal code evaluation, and then a 9-day teacher training. So if you're interested in joining us for those things, please drop Jeanie a note, Jeanie at whyagain.org. Jeanie at whyagain.org, and let her know, and we'll get back to you and make sure you have the details, and we get you set up to join us. And we have confirmed that we're going to do a training. I've actually shared with some of you the old dear friend, physician from I've been hanging out with for the last 50 years. You've heard him on the show, Patrick McGann. I have been doing some training with him remotely on doing the quantum still point process, because it's not something that one can fully effectively do on themselves, although I did make an attempt at that and was reasonably successful back a few weeks ago. I shared some of that with you. So the 2nd of March, so in about 2.5 weeks or so, he's going to be coming to town here. We've rented a house, and there is room for a couple of people to join us for Quantum Still Point. It's a 3-day process or a 5-day process, and it's optional, you know, as long as we've got the space to do up to a 5-day if we've got room. We've got a 3-bedroom house that we've rented for that event. So if you're interested in doing the Quantum Still Point, and I'll just offer that the core of it, what I'm observing, my best understanding of this, attempting to put it into words is a challenge, but one of the major things that I'm noticing with it is that it's breaking the addiction. This is at least how it appears to me right now. It's breaking the addiction to the trauma stored in carbon-based memory. It's breaking the addiction to the power person dynamic. And most people are addicted to that. They do a piece of work, and then the next time it comes up, they're back to it. They're addicted. And so that seems to be what's happening most powerfully with the quantum still point. So it's a 3-day process to a 5-day process. It will be happening starting on the 2nd. The first round of people who come in for that will arrive on the 2nd of March, and in the afternoon or evening. And then the sessions will be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, which will be the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. If they want to do a 5-day, then it will include the 6th and the 7th. And so if you're interested in that, you could drop Jeanie a note, or if you've got my phone number, you're welcome to call me, drop me a text. And if you're interested, we've got a couple of people registered for it. So there are a couple of spaces left if you want to participate. It's going to be a powerful time, and there will be the option. Patrick McGann, the physician who's coming to train with me to do the quantum still point process, is a master body worker, and his core, you've heard me speak before of his method of alignment of the form he calls center point balancing. And years ago, one of the highlights in my teaching career was I went and did a Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop right after he'd done a center alignment balancing with me. And it was the clearest my mind had ever been to do a presentation in a workshop. It was just awesome. And so there'll be an option, there'll be a 30-minute session that will be included if you come to do the quantum still point with Patrick. And then the option, if you want to do additional work with him, do that work with him in terms of massage or center point balancing. So that's what's happening here, and we're delighted that you've joined us. Please share the show. The archive will be on Poditize, as well as within a day or two or three, as well as being on our YouTube channel. So grab the archives, pass them on, share with others, especially if they're meaningful for you. And in the meantime, have the best year yet of your eternal life. Thanks for joining us. Blessings. Bye-bye.